everybody, and welcome to the Nostalgia Train Book Club February live show, even though it's March, for Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I'm your host, conductor for this train, Violet, and I'm joined by Marta. Oh my gosh, I've been doing StreamYard long enough that I automatically went the right
That's
direction.
impressive.
Yeah.
I love that intro. It's amazing.
Thank you. I've been wanting to update the intro for a very long time, and I thought, yeah, it was the time to do it. Um, do we just want to hop in or do introductions or I don't know.
Everyone knows who I am. So.
That's true. But does everybody know our history with the book? And because, like Neil Gaiman, I consider Brandon Sanderson a bit, why is my camera doing this to me? A bit of a celebrity author. I would also say like history with the author. Do you want me to go first or do you want to go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I actually didn't know that Brandon Sanderson was such a big deal. This book was published in 2006 and it was his second book that was published, but like is a millionth that he wrote. And I've actually been like such a weird Brandon Sanderson fangirl without ever having read any of his books. I think I first got introduced to him, but just by seeing booktubers talk about his writing and like talk about how he's like, one of the best in high fantasy. But it really wasn't until watching his lecture series that he has on his YouTube channel that I like kind of was like, oh, okay, like I love that series. Have you seen it, Marta?
Yeah.
Okay. And then from subscribing to his YouTube channel from that, I ended up becoming a regular watcher of his podcast that he does with Dan Wells. So I've seen like every episode of his podcast.
Wow.
So I'm like weirdly a fan, but I had never read one of his books until now. So yeah, that's me.
I'm subscribed to him as well, but I think on the lecture series and that one video about the secret project books, I've never watched any other videos on his channel, so I still see his face pop up. But yeah, similar sort of history really. I've never read anything from him before, but I'd watched his lecture series, and he talks about Mistborn as an example a lot, so I definitely felt like it'd be good to read it and understand the lecture series better. And my boyfriend read it, because I managed to get it on Kindle like on offer ages ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then my boyfriend read it because we had it, and I was just intimidated by how long it was, so I hadn't picked it up. And then I did because you forced me to.
You suggested it, and when you suggested it, I just immediately was like, we have to do it for the book club because there became an immediate discussion like, is this actually YA? Does this even work for the book club? And I was just so intrigued to cover this. Yeah. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. You brought up his video about his secret projects. It is technically the year of Sanderson this year. And I really think that that's kind of what brought him into like people outside of like the fantasy reading space, like into their awareness, like having the biggest Kickstarter campaign ever. I'm already stumbling over my words. This is great. Let's say hi to the chat. I popped in because I needed to give myself a wrench. Kelly hath popped in.
Oh, are we on the Nostalgia Train channel?
Yeah, and I realized I
hadn't
hadn't
even noticed.
I hadn't even given my own profile a wrench. Hey Mars, thank you. Hi Anna, and I know you read the book. Can't turn my volume up yet for a few minutes, so I can hear nothing, but I'm here. Love that, thank you. Mars says, one of my dad's friends recommended me to read Mistborn in literally 2012 because he knew I liked high fantasy, and it took me a decade to actually pick it up. Yeah, I was surprised to find out that the first book was published in 2006 because I had considered doing one of his other books for the book club, Steelheart. I might as well just put up the celebrity author banner because I have one. I didn't even put his name, I just put celebrity author. Yeah, I don't know. And just, I watch a lot of BookTube. Like, I never used to. I found BookTube from AuthorTube. I found AuthorTube first. But now I would say, like, BookTube's probably 50% of the YouTube I watch. Maybe even more. So, oh, but speaking of Wheel of Time, Brandon Sanderson did finish the last few Wheel of Time books after Robert Jordan died, and it was Mistborn, the book that Harriet, Robert Jordan's widow, read that really got him the job to finish Wheel of Time. So, yeah, again, I
did
know
not
all
know
this
any of
stuff.
that. So-
I watch all these interviews. I know all this stuff. I just had never read any of his books, which is kind of weird and creepy. But I've said it before, like I have like a weird fascination with a celebrity author, like the concept of like I don't know. Um, yeah, so this book I know takes place in the Cosmere, as most of his books do. This is the only thing I've read. And yeah, I feel like we touched on everything else. If chat wants to say anything about Year of Sanderson or Wheel of Time or the Cosmere, knock yourselves out.
Are you planning on reading any more books of him now that you've read that one? Not sure if that's a future discussion question, but
Well, I did buy the box set. You can see the next two
Oh, yeah.
matching spines over on my shelf, if I could line up. So, yeah, actually, right when this live show's over, probably tomorrow, I will start. What's book 2? Well of Ascension. So, yeah. Are you gonna continue or no?
I have the second one as well, because when my boyfriend read Mistborn, he bought the second one, but then he DNF'd it, so I'm worried. But I do have it, so I might as well read it. But
Yeah, I just decided to buy the box set. I don't know, because I thought they were pretty. But I don't.
That's so
I was gonna say I don't
gorgeous.
have a lot of books, like with all my books behind me. Look, but it's really
You
not
have
that
way
many.
more books than I do.
Okay. Casey popped in, and I know Casey had said that this was her favorite book. Correct me if I'm mistaken, Casey. Sorry, I keep coughing. Mars says, I always knew of Brandon Sanderson because I've been reading this kind of high fantasy since I was a kid, but I didn't really know of his celebrity status until maybe a year or two ago through BookTube. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I did want to give a little bit of a. I'm going to pop up the spoiler band. First of all, we're only talking about book 1, which is good because Marta and I have only read book 1.
Yeah,
Which
so
is-
that includes anyone in the comments that's read the series, please.
Yeah, so if you haven't read the book, you will be spoiled on book 1 during this chat. But if you've read further on or other Cosmere books or anything else, don't spoil us, please. You will get put in timeout. What am I supposed to do? Oh yeah, pull up banners.
And were you gonna do the disclaimer?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. I wanted to give a disclaimer because this is such a chunky book. And it's been almost a month since I read it. I read it really the beginning of February. There's some good, high fantasy, intricate plots in here, names, things like that. Marta and I are not computer brains. Well, actually, Marta's a little bit of computer brain, but
My computer brain is full. No
Yeah,
space for the
exactly.
book.
we are going to mess up names. We are going to mess up details. This is not going to be the most in-depth literary discussion in the world. We're here for a fun time, not a, I don't know, accurate
An
time.
accurate time.
Okay. Hey, Sasha. I haven't read this, but I'm here. Love to have you. Mar says, I don't want to chat too much about details because the trilogy is all blended together in my head since I read them back to back. Yeah, I purposely.
held-
Yeah.
I think we're gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
I've got it lined up. I wanna start that tomorrow or the day after or something.
Okay, great. So we really are on the same page with that.
Mm.
Do we want? Oops, I have to keep the spoiler banner up. Should we hop into talking about plot or about age category first?
Well, I've got nothing to say about age categories. Let's do plot.
Okay, discussion topics. Plot and pacing, specifically heist plots. I have been, that's like the only thing I knew about this book. Like, it's high fantasy, but a heist. Like, that was the only thing I'd heard about this book for years. I don't know. It didn't feel as heisty as I was expecting it to. What did you
Mm.
think, Marta?
I wanted to ask you about this actually because I don't consider it a heist, and my boyfriend does, so we disagree on this. But one of the lectures that I watched from Brandon Sanderson, because I rewatched them fairly recently,
Hmm.
and he was talking about originally wanting to make the heist the main plot, but then saying that it took a background role compared to the Master Apprentice plot. And I think I can see that. Like, it feels like he was trying to do a heist, but it ended up being more the Master Apprentice plot, with the heist as, like, more of a slightly background thing. I'm not sure if you feel like that as well.
Well, I feel like it just was kind of like labeled a heist because there was kind of like a ragtag team together.
Mm.
And because they were like all mostly criminals who had kind of been pulling off heists or like scams. But what they were actually doing was like trying to overthrow the empire, like, which is not
Yeah.
really a heist. Like,
I mean, it's set up as a heist, as in they're trying to steal the Atium, is it?
yes, yeah.
But then it isn't. So.
Because they also had like all these other different steps in their plan. Like
Mm.
it wasn't like a one and done cut and dry heist. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
But it
It,
follows the sort of like heist sort of steps. Like, it feels kind of heisty, but not really.
yeah, it has like a dash of heist. If you like heist, there's some heist in there. But if you're expecting like Ocean's 11, this is not.
Mm.
I don't know. It wasn't. Yeah, I thought it was going to be more of that, which I don't love a heist plot, so I was actually happy it wasn't. Do you have thoughts on the pacing? Because I do.
Why don't you go ahead? I'll build up what you say.
Okay, so I kind of, since so many people had like hyped up this book, so many people say it's their favorite book, I just assumed that I was gonna like also like love it and be obsessed with it, but it really wasn't like until like a good chunk in. I'm like maybe like a third in until I got invested in the story. The first part was very, I don't know, it just didn't grab me like I thought it would. And I found myself really disappointed at the beginning, like several chapters, like I don't know. I think when you go into a book expecting to love it and it wasn't what I thought, I think on a reread, I wouldn't have that issue because I already know that I loved the last half of the book.
Mm.
Um, but it didn't grab me like I thought it would. And I'd heard so many people say that they immediately got gripped by it. And I was sad that I didn't have that experience.
Mm. Yeah, I sort of get what you mean, but also I did get gripped from page one, but then I got ungripped and then gripped again later. If that makes sense. So, like, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but this, let's see if I can remember this, because I read it a long time ago as well. Well, 2 weeks ago, but still. Because there was the scene where he's sort of going around and we see, what was the main character's name? Not Vin, the Kelsier.
Kelsier?
Yes. You can see how bad I am at this. Where you see him use his Mistborn powers for the first time. And then I think, like, either the next chapter or the chapter after that, he's teaching Vin how to use her powers. And that second time round, like, he already explained it when he was using it by himself. It's explained to the reader. And then just immediately afterwards, it's explained to this other character. So at that point, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not enjoying this. This is boring. I'm just getting the same thing twice. But then I got gripped again a little later on. But
Yeah, I definitely see that. The pacing, like I actually like that because they had such a big goal, like of overthrowing the empire. I actually wasn't expecting that to be resolved in book one. I thought, oh, okay, they're just because they started going around it so slowly, okay, like all these little steps. And I was like, oh, I love this. I love that we're not just rushing through these things,
mm,
that we're getting to see all these different steps in between and time. And sometimes things felt, I don't know, I liked that part of the pacing actually, surprisingly. Um, and
So it
I
wasn't gripping, but in a good way, not gripping.
no, I don't know. It was really when Vin started being Valette and going to the balls and like met Elend Venture that I was like so totally invested. Then I was like in it. Sazed is one of my favorite characters. He was really relevant in that section of the book. And I am going to be straight up honest with you, Marta. When I picked up this book, I didn't think that this was going to give me the swoon-worthy romance I was looking for. I literally like swooned at this book when he like gave the handkerchief or whatever. I was like, oh God. I was blushing. Not what I expected from a Brandon Sanderson book. It's
I really
embarrassing
like
to
that part of
admit.
the story too.
Yeah, the romance was so cute.
I also really like that we got to see some of Ellen's POVs later on. Like that was really fun. I like those sections.
I did too. I really liked him as a character.
Hmm.
Especially how Vin like really thought like, oh, he's like such a social rebel, and it's like no, he just like was like really just talking about like these concepts. I love just like a really like dry book smart love interest. It's my favorite kind of love interest, so he hit the nail on the head for me. Um, I think that's all I have to say about plot or pacing. What do we have here? I never thought about it as a heist before. Now I would consider it more of a quest.
Mm.
I loved the high society bits. It was such a great contrast to the rest of the stuff. Yeah, it really balanced out some of the politicking. Oh, where are my banners? Okay, I do want to go to this one because yeah, it's what intrigued me to read the book. Is this adult or is this YA? Because I had not considered doing it for the book club before because I thought this was an adult book, but then I do remember people saying it was a YA book. It definitely sparked a bit of a discussion in the Discord. What do you think, Marta? Would you call this YA or adult? Like,
I'm torn because the main character is young adult, but then everyone else isn't. So, mm, I don't know. It it felt like a blend between the two.
yeah, I think especially those ball scenes with Vin felt young adult. Like,
Yeah.
but I think i- if I had to put it in one, I would put it in adult. Just because like if I would have went into this book thinking that it was an adult, I don't think an adult fantasy, adult high fantasy, I don't think I would have had such a hard time getting into it. Like my expectations would have been at a different bar.
Yeah.
Because some of the Kelsier stuff was drier, I guess is the word. Maybe dry is
Mm.
a bad word, but you know what I mean.
I did really enjoy the Kelsey stuff though.
I did too. Casey, I told you it wasn't YA. Yeah, but I can totally see why people feel that it's YA because of some of those Vin scenes. Like
Mm.
like honestly, for the book club we did Throne of Glass, and that's kind of like the ballroomy vibe. Like okay, weird to compare those two, but like on like a age category level, like yeah.
Mm.
Like I told you, this made me like little girl swoon, like laugh and blush. Like that's like a YA level stuff. I wouldn't expect that from an adult. Like I wouldn't go to like George R. R. Martin to like get that feeling. Okay. If we're if we're taking just the first book, I believe it's firmly YA, but the trilogy as a whole toes the line more. Yeah, so it like I said, it had been what was did I say? Marketed as both at different points. So just because Vin is YA doesn't mean the book itself. Yeah, because I think in a true YA you wouldn't have a prominent adult POV character.
Mm.
At least like in my head, like as somebody who writes YA, I would never do that. Like to me that would be a no-go.
Yeah, and it was also like, you know, for her to be the only young character would be a bit weird in YA. Like, even if you had Kelsier being older, like, the rest of the crew should have been younger for it to be YA. Because she was the only young person, so it's a bit too much.
Yeah, yeah. Because even Elland is how old? Like he was quite a bit older than her, and that was like the only person there who was like her peer. And like even those girls at the ball, I can't remember a name of any of them. Oh wait, I already got that comment. I agree. The ball stuff is more YA, but since there is no sex, Casey, what are you? But those things don't make it YA. Fair enough. Fair enough. The writing style totally feels YA to me. Yeah, some of it does, yeah. But I think there are also parts that don't as well.
Mm.
I don't know. Maybe part of me wishes I would have reread it, like read it twice, because I like my first read through like was so much about my expectations, and I think I would have a completely different opinion on a reread.
Well, we can revisit it February next year. Maybe
Yeah,
you'll have more
because
co-hosts.
yeah, why did we get not enough co-hosts is what I don't understand. Like we picked like a super popular book by a super popular author.
It's because everyone's already read it.
Nice one. Well, Anna read it, but still has us on mute and is totally having some FOMO. I can see.
No.
Would love it more. Ugh, I would love it more with my reread. Couldn't handle reading it this month. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
I do think it was good though to read it for the book club because again, even if it to me felt more adult, I do think like a lot of teen fantasy readers, it is because it is has some YA things, it is kind of like the perfect thing to step up to for teens who have outgrown some of the like more YA high fantasy.
Mm.
And because like Casey did mention, it is clean. I know from being a Brandon Sanderson fangirl like I am that he doesn't write explicit stuff in his novels because he's a Mormon.
Well, I'm glad we picked it up for the book club because you've got all the fun facts today.
I know.
You've been preparing for this discussion for years.
Well, that when you suggested doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that it had been also promoted as YA and that it was published in 2006, that it would totally qualify for the book club. I didn't even think about it.
I think
So,
Miles is the one that originally suggested it, though, by the way. I just jumped in on the bandwagon and then you singled me out as your co-conductor.
I did. I singled you out because I was.
I didn't actually realize it was YA until Miles suggested in the Discord leader.
It has always been seen as a perfect book for people that are wanting to get into high fantasy. Yeah, I agree, because when we read Aragon, Aragon reads so much younger than this. Throne of Glass is really not like other girls tropey. And this is something, yeah, like when we read The Hobbit, I think if, like, that's like an older fantasy, but like, yeah, I could definitely see this being a nice place to go. And like you said, Marta, that Brandon mentioned this a lot when he was talking about his books,
Mm.
like as kind of the entry point to his own reading, because I've heard that his other series, the name is his other high fantasy series, whatever the dense one. Somebody in the chat is going to tell me what it is. that's like,
I know the one you mean, but I don't know the name.
I know like the names of the titles of the books, but I can't think of the name of the series. Um, anyways, yeah, that's more like adult high fantasy from what I've heard. So, but like I said when I was talking about the pacing, I mentioned this in the Discord. Um, I think a problem that I had getting into this is because I had listened to the audiobook, and it's the same narrator as Wheel of Time, and I had just read Wheel of Time like, I don't know, 3, 4 months ago. And like that's a thick book. So it's like I just so associated the voice. And because also Brandon Sanderson had the connection with Wheel of Time, which is I think
Yeah,
why he had the same narrator. Well, actually I know it is. But
of course you know.
yeah, it definitely, I think also that maybe led me to thinking it was adult. Like having the same
Yeah.
feeling just from the narration. Maybe I would have had to get a different experience if I would have had the ebook or this physical copy. Stormlight Archive, thank you.
Are you planning on reading the second book as an ebook or the physical copy now that you have it?
I will probably do a mix between the physical and audio. So just because I think that's fun to do. That's actually what I did do with Wheel of Time. So like I like to like if I have both versions, I like to like read the beginning physical and like the end physical and just read the whole middle with the audiobook. I don't know why I do that.
It's funny.
I think with fantasy it's like a double-edged sword because when you're hearing it, you don't know how the words are spelt, but when you're reading them, you don't know how they're pronounced.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce anything.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I know how things are pronounced, but then when I see them written, I was like, well, that's not how it looked in my head. I wonder if you would think this book is adult or YA if you read is actual YA books. Huh?
So if you're used to reading a lot of YA books, if that
Oh,
would change your opinion of what it is versus if you just read adult books, if you would then think it's YA.
I don't know. It seems like the fantasy bros seem to endorse this book, but I don't know like the YA fantasy girlies if they're embracing this book. So, I'd have to ask. I have more banners. It's nice when we only have two people because we just like go through the discussion really quick.
I know.
Do we want
It's
to
hard
talk
to get a
about?
word in when there's 6 of us.
Do we want to talk about the magic system? Because I mean that's another thing I'd heard about Brandon Sanderson from his lectures, I think, and just people talking about him like the magic system guy.
Yeah.
So you had already said that the over-explaining or
Yes, I found it annoying. But I don't know if he just thought it was more complicated than it actually is, but I don't see why he included the same explanation twice. Because there was very little new the second time around. There were a couple of little extra bits of information, but really not that much more. It probably didn't help that I read both like in the same setting, so it was very fresh in my mind, but it really felt like just reading the same thing again.
Yeah. Well, I told you before we went live that like my physical copy has this like allomancy guide in the back with what all the metals do. And that would have been really helpful while I was reading because I knew that I was not going to retain that. Like because I just trust the book like, oh, would they say, "Oh, she ingested this and then this happened." I was like, "Okay, like I don't know." I knew I wasn't going to comprehend when there's that many different types of metal that I wasn't going to have them memorized.
Yeah,
So,
like the ones that are used the most often you
yeah.
recognize, and then the other ones it's just like, well, those aren't important.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just seeing what Casey said. No, if you read Brandon's other YA books, would you still think this book is YA? Oh,
Oh.
I did say that Steelheart was something I thought about reading. Or what's his other YA series? Uh, Wait, I mean, I have his Wikipedia pulled up. I guess I could just scroll down. Um, he he wrote a lot of books. Skyward, thank you, Mars. That's the one. Yeah, I will definitely check some of those out. The guide in the back of the book is so spoilery, especially for later books. Don't look at that guide. Oh, I guess, I mean, I
Good
didn't
to
really
know.
read it. I just noticed it was there.
Mm.
I
And I
mean, I
was
don't,
gonna say that it felt like the magic system was very well thought out. I did really like it. Like it was original, but also well balanced, I guess. Like it worked really well. And I like how it's presented as this thing that everyone understands really well with all of these rules. And the more we get towards the end of the book, the more it's like, actually, maybe we don't know everything there is to know about this. Maybe we're missing something.
yeah, I agree. I think that was definitely a cool little intrigue because it's such a hard magic system that there was like this 11th metal, like, we didn't know what it was doing. Yeah, it added a little bit of mystery into a very hard magic system.
Mm.
I don't know. I heard a lot of people complain that they don't like how like hard and frigid the magic system was, but it didn't bother me.
Mm.
It didn't. Uh, yeah, they
It's
did.
still cool.
Yeah, it's still fun. It was still pretty like original and interesting, and
And you don't know how it works from the start. I know that the elemency part is explained pretty early on, but you don't know about those extra metals until later on. And you also don't get the other magic system until later on, so you sort of get to find out things progressively, which makes it really interesting, even if it's a hard magic system.
yeah, I agree. And that's like what made it. Well, like major spoiler if anybody who's listening who didn't read the book, like that's like at the end how they can defeat the Lord Ruler is because, she knows, this is a hard rule about how this magic works.
Yeah.
So, and that's very satisfying for us as the readers, getting
Mm.
to have that payoff.
It's also really cool that you can figure it out yourself, like because he set up the rules. Like I did actually figure out that he was the spoilers for the end of the book, but that he was the other type of magic system person. Like not that far ahead, but I think maybe 20 or 30 pages before the actual character did. So that was really fun that like you can do that because everything, all the information is there.
Oh, see, I didn't figure it out.
Well, I only figured it out at the very end, like when you see him and like he's old and she's
Uh,
confused by that. It's like,
no, I was just along for the ride, and I don't know. Like I said, the end of the book, like the last two-thirds of the book, were like really great for me. I mentioned in the Discord, like I wouldn't know like my rating for this book if it would be a 4 or 5 stars. Like I think I almost can't give it 5 stars because the beginning was really slow for me, but the end was so good. The What would
mm,
your rating for it be, Marta? Did you say?
I don't know. I don't think I would give it a full 5 stars. The two main reasons being what I talked about with the explanation for the magic system being so repetitive at the start, but also the ending was very, very good, but it felt a little bit too easy. At points, like the once she figured it out, she knows how to defeat him, but the actual pulling it off part
Mm.
should have been a lot harder than that. And like he's been playing on that idea that her powers are quite strong compared to other people from the start.
Yeah.
But still, like she felt a bit too overpowered at that scene.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I really thought like a good chunk into the book, I really thought like how kind of slow the thing was setting up with the armies and their other plans kind of getting into overthrowing the empire. I thought, oh, the actual killing of the Lord Ruler is not going to happen until book 2 or 3. Like, I, I thought it was going to be the series arc, and I was kind of looking forward to that. So when it started getting wrapped up, I was like, oh no, he's going to actually end up going down in this book. Especially when, also major spoiler for people listening, if you wanted to read this, when Kelsier died, I thought like I wasn't, first of all, not expecting that. Like that one knocked me on my ass.
But then when you think about it, like what happened before, it also made sense. I didn't think it would happen, but like on reread, like you would pick up all the clues if you were
Yeah.
to look at it again.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought when Kelsier died, I thought it was going to be like, oh, they're going to have to start over, like from square one. They're going to, like, this. Well, there was also a fake out death in this with Marsh, his brother, which wasn't like a real fake out death now. Like, it was just they saw all that blood and they assumed he had died. And that
Yeah,
actually really got me. Like, I don't,
I cried like a baby. Yeah.
yeah, I don't normally get so emotional over character death, but I just loved Marsh. I love the idea of sort of like a half estranged sibling. Like, I don't know. Like, it was such a dynamic that I just
I think I
total
cried more
jelly
about
for.
Marsh than Kelsier.
Me too. When Kelsey died, I was like, eh, well, he was kind of arrogant.
I also didn't believe it. I thought like, no, I'm sure that it's the like Karma slash Lord Brennow saying like they switched places, like he's done something. It's definitely not.
Wait a minute, I'm behind in the chat.
That's another magic system actually, the Karma guy slash Mist Wraith thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here. I really love the magic system in this series. I feel like the type of metals is a new type of magic, and I loved it. Hi, Caitlin. I agree with Violet, what Violet said at the beginning, being slow. Oh, okay, nice. Nice that somebody also felt like that. I really was feeling like I was the only one who wasn't just pulled in. Anna says, I read the first third 2 years ago and then put it down until now. So that says something about the beginning. Oh, okay. The magic system of this world is one of my all-time favorites. But you do have to constantly check the chart at the back for it to make sense. I freaked when Kelsier died. I kind of hoped it would be the series arc because once that finished, I had no idea what was going to come next, and I didn't like going into the series without an idea what the next book will entail. I feel like they set it up kind of like, well, the book's
Yeah,
also called The Well of Ascension.
yeah, that helps. But yeah, no, I agree though that you kinda know what's gonna happen, but also you don't have that like immediate sense of peril. Like there's no real cliffhanger as such, which is good actually. Like when, because now we can binge the series, but when it came out, like you don't have this like anxiety to read the next book, but then you do kind of know what's gonna happen and why that's gonna have to be solved later on.
Yeah.
I'm
How did
assuming
you
I haven't read
feel
it. But
about like the journal entries being like included? Because I feel like that's kind of what was laying the groundwork to this mystery.
yeah, I don't know. I like them. I think when I was starting, like the first couple of I don't know 100, 200 pages, I found them a bit annoying. Like I read them, but it felt like an obligation to read them. I was like, just give me the main plot, you know. I don't want to miss anything, but I also don't want to read this. But then I started getting interested in them, like once it started picking up the pace, and it was like, oh, I understand what this is now. It's no longer just like a random, you know. It just seemed like when authors put snippets of other books at the start of the chapters and things like that, like it seemed completely unrelated, so I wasn't interested in it. And then once I figured out what it was interesting to read.
Yeah, like especially towards the end, it became really gripping because like at that point we've already like learned so much. But yeah, I agree. Like at first it was kind of annoying. Or it always is a little bit kind of like, oh, I'm not gonna appreciate this till a reread. Kelsey's death makes sense once you finish the trilogy. I gasped out loud when they found out Marsh died. I don't know why. I just love Marsh.
I think I liked Marsh, but also it hurt how much it hurt Kelsey. Like Kelsey's reaction was just heartbreaking.
Yes, what do y'all think about the mist and the mist wraith thing? I liked it.
Me too.
I just like creepy, creepy things. It was like,
I also liked I like the relevance to it. Like it doesn't seem important when you're reading the first encounter of a mystery and when he's explaining how it works, but then it is.
yeah, again, it like came around very satisfying
Mm.
conclusion. You can definitely see that Brandon Sanderson used a lot of like craft and detail into getting payoff for a lot of the setup he does.
Yeah, these books are definitely very well thought out, and I can't believe how quickly he writes them.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, none of the deaths really upset me until a few in the final book.
Don't scare me.
I love the journal entries and I love them even more in the rest of the books. You guys are dancing on spoiler territory right now. I completely disagree, Casey. I like them most in the first book. Oh, look at this discussion. And I feel like the gimmick is kind of played out and kind of unnecessary. No! The final book there, Chef's Kiss. Hey, Spirit Steak. I don't even remember what the journal entries in the third book were. That's how little I cared. You should have read them, Mars. It was like its own puzzle. I loved it. I did read them. I just didn't think they were as important to the story as the ones in the first book. I can see that. That was
I love the
a
voices.
riveting, yeah, a riveting exchange that we had there. Should we talk about the prose and the writing style? I don't have anything to say about this.
Other than it was just as amazing.
Yeah, I mean it was good.
Honestly, like I was going through stages while reading it where at points I was like, this is amazing and so good, and there's no way I'm ever going to write anything that good, I might as well give up. And then other parts in the book where I was like, this is so inspiring and I want to get better so I can write like this too. And I feel like the parts where it was so good that I felt motivated were actually the descriptions, which might just be because I suck at descriptions, but like just his way of describing the fog and the cities and like just everything was so easy to visualize and so beautiful. And I highlighted a bunch of paragraphs that I wanted to reread to like deconstruct, and it's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything negative to say about the writing style. It was clear, it was easy to understand. Yeah, some passages were pretty. I liked the descriptions of the mist wraiths. I just like creepy things. Yeah, it was nice. Wait, is the chat saying anything? LOL. The thing I want to discuss the most is the ending of the third book because I hated it. Caitlin.
We can discuss it when me and Violet finish the second and third book soon.
And discuss it in the Discord with a spoiler band over it. Oh, I actually have not seen the vlog because I didn't want to get spoiled.
Same, I have to go back and watch it.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's funny that Mars had a wrench and I didn't have a wrench. My main gripe. Why weren't there any other women in the crew, though? I want a badass female soother or something. Yeah, tell him, Anna. Brandon, just because you had a female as one of the main characters, where were where were the ladies on the crew? Okay. Were you testing if you have a wrench?
Yes. Did you give me one when we start the discussion, or did I already have one?
You must have already had one because
How did I get one?
I must have given you guys them when I set up the channel and forgotten to give myself one. Last topic.
Ooh, already?
Yeah, well, we're almost to the 1 hour mark, and there's just two of us.
Yeah, not bad. I guess it normally takes us 2 hours with 6 people, so.
Themes, symbols, and motifs. Oh,
Well, I still
speaking.
struggle with the difference between those 3 words, so why don't you start?
Oh, okay. So it starts off in the beginning, with Kelsier going to this sort of ska enslavement place, and it was like very reminiscent of like slavery, like in the American South to me. And I was like, oh, is this going to be like a big allegory for slavery? Like, I was really nervous about where this was going to go, and I also was wondering a lot of the times, like could people, well, I learned the answer later, but for so much of the novel I was like, what are ska? Like, what are ska? Like, are they just people? Like, I was really confused for a long time.
I'm gonna be honest, me too, especially the first few chapters. Like, I didn't know where to imagine them different to humans. Because you're implying they're a different race, but what do they look like?
Yeah, I was really confused. Yeah, and obviously then later, like, you could see that, like, Kelsier and Vin are both half ska,
Yeah.
so they were pretending to just be noble people. So it's like, oh, noble people and ska. But I don't know. I found that something kind of a little bit confusing. Like, that could have used a slight more clarification, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, I think the clarification was there. It could just have been done earlier in the book. But yeah.
Yeah, really, it could have just been like one line Brandon would have told us. Oh, do. Wait. Yeah, aside from Vin and a few ladies from the balls, are there even any other women? I can't remember any from the first book.
I mean, there's the lady from the ball that turns out to be a badass Mistborn, but other than that.
That was kind of a cool reveal, though. I liked that.
Mm.
There isn't with a melty face. I love the combos with about what religion would I be in with what's his face. Oh, with Sazed. I love Sazed. He's one of my favorite characters. I just
He
found him
was great,
interesting.
and I did also love those conversations.
Yeah, it was just cute.
And it's such cool backstory as well. Like, it's a really fun way of adding detail of like, oh yeah, this is what the world used to be like before all of this, and there were all of these different religions, and it just adds so much character to the world, but in a way that feels very character driven and like just natural. Like, it's not forced, it's just, it works really well. I really like those.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the perfect amount of like you're actually getting info, like the anti-info dump, where it feels like just character information about Sazed, like in his personality. So you're really getting like a 2 for 1. Like, I would
Yeah.
love to master this in my own writing. Like,
But then he's also trying to read the other characters. He's trying to give the religion too. So it's like you're
Yes.
getting stuff about both characters
Yeah.
and the world and finding out that it's amazing.
It's a really effective writing, and I am jealous of this skill. I would like to possess this. I know we get a couple more later on in this series. Okay. I also love the relationship between Vin and Kelsier. I mean, that's definitely something to talk about. Vin definitely has some trust issues, and Kelsier is a little bit too trusting. He's like the complete opposite to her. Like, if you're gonna betray me, okay. I don't
I
know.
know, I just love them though. They're so cute and funny.
Yeah, the dynamic is cute. Yeah. Well, that's something at least. Yeah, when Elend was having his whole realization that Scar are literally just people. I did not realize that they were viewed as like a different species until then. Yeah, like when he's asking um Valette at the ball, like, "Oh, you were around Ska? Like, do they have like feelings? Do they like understand?" I was like, "Oh."
Which is such a weird thing to ask if they look the same. Like I
Yeah.
had the opposite to that. Like I just didn't realize they looked the same until much later on.
Yeah, because it made them seem like they were almost like, yeah, animals or something. Like,
Yeah.
they're just people. It was like really okay, so it was like an allegory for like, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Kelsier's wife gets mentioned that it's dead. Oh yeah, I forgot about her.
Mm. God, I thought that backstory was so sad.
I was a little bit nervous about this because I really hate the like woman in the freezer trope, like dead wife just to give a man
Yeah.
a backstory, which she a little bit was, but I did like the that there was this mystery, like did she betray him or not?
Mm.
That's what kind of kept it above bar for me, giving her a
Yeah.
character even in death. Like,
And just the whole stuff about the pits of whatever it was called. Hashin, I think? Hashin? I don't
it's
remember.
literally on the tip of my tongue.
But it was just so cool. Like, I think I have like a tiny bit of claustrophobia, so just reading it was like enough to make me like, oh my god, I hate this, but also I love it. It's so good. It was a real, like, really, really creepy to read. And I'm glad it was just backstory. Like, the time where we got the perspective of one of the characters, like, finding one of the stones and coming out, and then Kelsey seeing him at, towards the end of the book, was very uncomfortable, but also very, very good.
Yeah, I liked it. Oh wait, I just clicked on that. Yeah, I don't count her or Vin's mom. Yeah, I was really expecting something different from Vin's brother Reen. That was really like a red herring for me. I kept thinking, oh, Reen is gonna come back. He's gonna betray her or be redeemed, or he's gonna. So it was, yeah. I kept thinking because that's like normally when you see a character get brought up so early on, that's usually their purpose. Like, that's why they're being mentioned here. So Sanderson kind of did a 1-2 punch with me for that one. I don't know if you had thoughts on that.
I didn't pick up on him coming back, but I don't know. I did think that he would be relevant, but and I was definitely surprised by why he was relevant. But I don't think I saw about it as much in depth as you did.
Unpopular opinion. I did not really like Sazed. I thought he was meh.
Take it back.
Sazed is should be protected at all costs. I love Sazed. I did worry that Sazed might turn out evil and betray Vin, but I thought he would never. Like, scraping the bottom of the barrel there with the dead before in the beginning. It's okay, I'm sorry. I compose myself. Oh, hi, Heather. I don't think the gripe about women gets any better in the second book, at least for me. Okay, good to know. Love to say it, but Casey. But on the topic of Sazed, my biggest gripe with the book is that he's a eunuch, but it's not actually what a eunuch is. I don't want to get too not safe for work, but it really bothered me how they misused the word. I don't remember how they described him.
Yeah, I don't remember this either.
I mean, I remembered he was a eunuch, but it like if you would have asked me things about Sazed, it would have been pretty down on the list of like facts about him.
I know there was the scene where he's naked in front of Vin, and he looks, and Darian looks away very quickly, but I can't even remember how it's described, so I didn't pick up on this. I think I was just embarrassed reading it and skipped a sentence, to be honest.
I'm gonna talk about eunuchs in Discord.
Okay.
We look forward to that discussion because it's important for later books. Dun dun dun! Ellen is a naive boy sometimes, but in a wholesome way.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked him.
Me too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the characters and things in the book did really stayed with me. 'Cause some books really just, well, really for me, since I listen a lot on audiobook, in one ear out the other. And usually for me, that's like how I rank my books. It's like, because a lot of times, like maybe I'll give a book a 3-star, like, oh, it was just okay after reading it, or a 5-star, like, that was an amazing read. But like, I really have to wait a month or two to see like how they've aged. 'Cause some books just stay with you, like, oh, maybe I didn't love that book while I was reading it, but like the character stayed with you, the themes stayed with you, something. So I'm actually surprised I remembered as much about the plot as I did during this discussion.
Same. Yeah, I was expecting to just have forgotten everything already. I gave myself, this is technically related to pacing, I guess, but I gave myself slightly over a month to read it because based on the length, that's how long I thought I would need based on my usual reading speed. And I got so addicted, I basically read it so much faster than I was intended and just finished it like 3 weeks before the discussion. So, oops.
Yeah, it took me like 7 or 8 days to read the audiobook, which normally it only takes me 2 or 3 days to read an audiobook of that length. But I really was quite slow at the first chunk.
I took 2 weeks and I thought I was being fast.
That is fast for such a big, because you read the ebook, you said,
Yeah, but still.
for like a 600 something page book. Yeah, that is fast, Marta.
It's not 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, but it's an ebook versus an audiobook.
Still.
Okay, do we have any clothing thoughts? No, closing thoughts.
Do you wish now that you've read this book that you'd gotten the special Kickstarter books?
I mean, no, but also you want to know how mad I was when I found out that Michael Kramer also is the narrator for Tress and the Emerald Sea. I was like, damn it, Brandon, get a different audiobook narrator. No, I will read them eventually, but I feel like he has such a backlist of books. I'm not rushed to get to the Secret Project books.
It just took all of my willpower not to sign up to the Kickstarter at the time, even though I hadn't read a single book of his and didn't know
Same.
if I would like them or not.
Same. I was like, how can I just...
And now that I've read Mistborn, I'm like, damn it, I should have read Mistborn a year ago and signed up to the Kickstarter.
Yeah. I definitely... Like, that's something about the book club, though. It pushes me to read books that, like, I've been sitting on for a long time.
Yes, I definitely don't think I would have picked this up if you hadn't forced me into it. Literally not even like... If you'd picked it up for the book club and I wasn't co-conducting, I might not have picked it up. Like, I would have made some excuse for it and said, like, oh, I'll read it next month. I'm still planning on reading The Hobbit and Percy Jackson Lake because I missed out the month you were reading them.
I had thoughts in my head. They'd went somewhere. Oh, I had already had a hold on the audiobook from the library when you brought it up. So like I'd already been in that line for like 4 or 5 months. So I was like, perfect. And I know some people had problems getting a hold of it because, yeah, some of those popular books always have a line at the library for people who are digital library users like myself.
Yeah, I just happened to have bought it already. I literally bought it, and then when my boyfriend asked me for a recommendation on any of the books, because we've got shared Kindle library, so we can both access all the books, and he finished what he was reading, so he asked what he should read out of the books that I've bought on offer and haven't read, which is like a million of them. I recommended Mistborn because I'd heard so many good things, and then he read it, and he'd been trying to get me to read it for like 6 months so we could talk about it. He failed, you did it.
Wait. Oh, the complaint has been made. Let me know if I should go back and spoiler warn it because I did not do that. Well, does it spoil something? Or just spoils that he's a eunuch in book 1? I trust your judgment. Is this audiobook narrated by its celebrity nemesis? No, it's just because I associate it so much with Wheel of Time. The same thing happened with, I can't remember the guy's name who was the audiobook narrator for The Raven Boys, which was also a book club pick. I really liked his narration, but then it was so distinct that I picked up another book that I wanted to read, and like in the first 2 seconds I was like, oh no, that's the Raven Boys guy. I can't do this. I just returned the book to the library. I was like, I can't do this. I'm sorry. That voice belongs to a different story in my head. So, I don't know.
As someone that doesn't read audiobooks, that sounds like a really strange problem to have. But also it kind of makes sense. So.
Yeah, but it's like the opposite. If there's like a narrator who I love, I go like and look on their page to see what other books they've narrated. So even if I loved the book, I think it just depends. Okay, I spent so long Googling the narrator because I was sure it was the guy from The Good Place. Voice twins. Interesting. No, it's not spoilers. It's just not safe for work. Okay. Fair enough. I think I'm gonna take down the spoiler banner because I think we're done talking about Mistborn, right? Unless I have no other thoughts. I think we thinked all the thoughts. Well, I was gonna say next month, but this month,
Sorry,
March.
my bad.
Don't apologize. Is The Ranger's Apprentice, Runes of Gorlin, in collaboration with the Tome Traveler Book Club. I cannot name all 3 of their books off the top of my head. But they have 3 other picks that also fit into the Apprentice theme fantasy book. So if you don't feel like reading Ranger's Apprentice, they have also some options of things to read. I put an invite link to their Discord in our Discord.
Do you want the name of the books?
Sure.
It's Uprooted by Naomi Novik for YA, Air Awakens by Elise Kova for NA, and The Naming by Alison Krogan for Adult.
Ooh. I'm going to look into those because I usually try to read a Tome Traveler pick when I can. Ooh, Ranger's Apprentice. The only one of their books I remember is Uprooted. Oh, it's a fave. I've read one Naomi Novik book before. So.
I
Okay.
think Uprooted might be the one that Mars recommended to me at some point. That I'll be reading.
Oh, Casey says Uprooted is what sprouted my brain dump file. I would like to know more about this, actually. I recommend a lot of books.
Yes, I meant a specific instance, but I'm not going to say more. I'll tell Violet backstage.
I have a bunch of books in my head. Like for every person, I have like ongoing recommendations. So I was like, if I ever have a lot of money, I'm just gonna gift all my friends a shit ton of books.
Aww.
It's like my dream. Uprooted might be a comp. Oh, I now I kind of want to read it, y'all. I'm gonna check if the library has it. So yes, please support Tome Travelers as well. And if you want to read Ranger's Apprentice with us and talk about it, we will be doing that also sometime the end of this month, beginning of next month. I'm gonna roll the outro. Thank you, Marta, for being on board with me this month, and thanks everybody who showed up in chat. It was a great discussion. Bye.